Hi, my name is Alex and this is Travel TitBits 22. And tonight we're talking about aeroplanes. And in particular, Combi use aircraft. Now, what on earth is Combi use? Yes, well, it's all about cargo. All right. And yeah, what is special about cargo? Can cargo be more important than people? Well, apparently so. I mean, after all, have you ever heard a piece of cargo complaining? Yes, the days of aeroplanes just carrying people. Yes, how ridiculous is this? We need to make sure the cargo is moving too. And in my formative years, I used to love playing board games. And I played a Waddington's board game of Asia, and I went to Kuala Lumpur and Kuantan and Manila. I went to all these places before I knew where any of these places were. Well, I still don't know where any of them are. But it was a great board game, and I had a big map, and I could organise planes taking small pieces of cargo, because it was based in the early days of cargo operations in the 1920s and 30s, and the planes were small. You could only put in so many boxes, and the idea of this game was that you could only carry 1, 2 or 3 boxes in every plane, and that depended, or it had this big difference, was that you could only go so far with your luggage. It was all very well having an objective. You must carry 1 piece or 2 pieces or 3 pieces of luggage, but the more luggage you carried, the less you could go. It didn't matter how much fuel you had on board, you used more fuel. And it was a good game because it kind of simulated problems that a pilot might have, like bad weather or not, already in flight and not being able to land, perhaps being diverted to another airport. And when playing against other players, it was a very interesting games. Occasionally planes didn't make it, they were lost en route. You just had to, grin and bear it and write them off and get yourself another plane. Thankfully, cargo is a little more dependable. And it really came into its own when the Boeing 747s came along, and it became much more noticeable because Boeing designed one of their flavours as cargo only, and out the front the beautiful bubble would open up and you would see this cavernous interior in which you could put pallets of cargo in. And the Jumbo was famous for taking 12 pallets. It's kind of like asking if a Jumbo can take 12 crates of beer. Yeah, I think so. KLM, a Dutch airline, became very prolific cargo carriers, and they were one of the first major carriers to get into Combi cargo operations. And what that meant was one of the early flavours of the 747, the 747-200, could take 6 pallets plus 200 passengers. And for a while that was very popular with the Dutch. But for some reason it didn't carry on. And basically some of the two things happened. Firstly, there were concerns expressed about these services because there wasn't the same flexibility, because planes with passengers ran to schedules, whereas cargo doesn't really have those sorts of restrictions. They can go more or less at any time. I've watched video bloggers who've had privileged access to major cargo hubs, and apart from perishable versus non-perishable, it doesn't really, you're not really pressed for time or any particular schedule with cargo in the same way passengers are. The other reason that Combi cargo went out of fashion was that there was a Combi service that came out of Taiwan one year, and they had a fire on board, and all the cargo took hold in the fire, and all the passengers were overcome by smoke and fumes, and the plane was never seen again because it basically ditched in the sea without trace. So yes, I can understand why it became less popular, and the FAA was instrumental in saying that it wasn't really a safe option. But now they're back, and I think the difference is, and Airbus appears to be at the forefront of this, is that they've obviously solved all the safety issues, but it's the flexibility on routes that's now important more than ever. Post-pandemic, not knowing passenger demand, or knowing it and just wanting a bit more flexibility. So aircraft for many years have been modular. So I guess now the industry have just been working harder on swapping those modules whenever it's needed. So I'm not imagining that it's like, on the 7 a.m. flight it was all passengers, and at 12 o'clock it was 50-50, and then in the evening it was all cargo. It's more like having a medium-sized aircraft that has a reasonable range, because cargo can affect the range, and then just over time measuring need. So the other thing that's changed, of course, is that aircraft are lighter and they're more fuel efficient, and it's changing all the time. So the Combi system is coming back into its own again. So it is, watch this space. I think it's I think this is something that Airbus has really thought about. So will Boeing follow suit and come up with their own aircraft? Well, let's wait and see, isn't it? Okay, so there you have it. One day you may show up for your flight and there's a little bit more cargo on there than you thought. See you next time.